Of course, Mike Gundy has said he would like a quarterback to win the job in the spring, but he also said there hasn't been enough to change the rotation thus far. Could that mean that Doug Meacham actually has a massive opportunity to make the offense even more fun again in 2025?
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're brought to you by Game Time. You need to get squared away today with the best in the business when it comes to tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We are going to shift into the conversation of quarterback, the position that always is going to permeate the headlines more often than not, especially when you have a quarterback battle. Oklahoma State seemingly has that. And, of course, Mike Gundy has been very open that he doesn't want to run into the situation that he's been in the last couple of years without having the bona fide certified quarterback entering spring. Well, winning the job is proving to be a little bit more difficult than potentially anticipated. But does that necessarily mean it's a bad thing? Now, of course, we understand that there is a lot of complexity to the quarterback position, and there's a lot of merit in a quarterback not only garnering control of the offense, but the locker room as well, right? The leadership and the ability for the offensive line to potentially do a little bit more if they have faith in the guy behind them. There's a lot to that. But at the same time, I always date back to 2019 with Sean Gleason. Sean Gleason was kind of famous, and he got the job at Oklahoma State because of him running a multiple quarterback system at Princeton. And then whenever he got the job at Oklahoma State, I assumed, since we had a freshman, Spencer Sanders, we had a transfer, Drew Brown, coming in, and we also had a young Brendan Costello, who was a dual-threat quarterback out of the West Coast. I knew we didn't necessarily have a bunch of talent per se. We didn't have a quote-unquote true guy with Spencer Sanders being a freshman, but we clearly had a lot of speed. We had a lot of athleticism, and we also had Peyton Thompson as well. So we had the ability to potentially do what made him kind of famous at Princeton, which is running the multiple quarterback set. Even more so deadly was the fact that at Princeton, their quarterbacks, all of them could throw. So they would run certain formations with three quarterbacks. Did I expect that to happen? Maybe not, but two quarterbacks was a possibility. And I definitely expected that to kind of be a semblance of his offense and so on. But obviously, he didn't do any of that. And we did get to see the emergence of Spencer Sanders. And you're hearing some things kind of out of spring that Hauss Hejny has a lot of that Spencer Sanders capability to him. But the downside to having a Spencer Sanders style quarterback is, of course, injuries. I mean, we dealt with this through J.W. Walsh and Clint Shelf years as well. When you have somebody that has the ability to take off and outrun an entire defense, it does put them in a position where they're going to be susceptible to injury. I mean, heck, look at Garret Rangel, who came to Oklahoma State as a 4.9 40 guy who's been able to creep into the 4.5 range now, thanks to Rob Glass, but also the fact that he's been able to kind of morph into this dual threat capability. We saw him get injured last year against BYU in a game that we were winning, and it looked like we had pretty good control, which could have kind of catapulted us into the latter half of the season being entirely different. But he got hurt. So having a mobile quarterback, it's something that makes you hold your breath every time they take off. Of course, you want Hauss Hejny's 10, 6, 100-meter speed out there. You would love to see Garret Rangel continue to show us what he gave us little glimpses of against BYU. And now we know that the offense is going to be a little bit more complex than it has been in the past. You have the Doug Meacham former terminology that he is instituting to some degree that makes Mike Gundy's familiarity much better. But you also have some of the TCU stuff that he's been able to incorporate, some of that Trayvon Boykin-esque. So, again, a lot of this kind of leads you to the idea that we're going to run off of a dual threat capability, and that is absolutely massive because of the numerical advantages. I go back to Spencer Sanders. The frustration with him was that he'd only make a couple reads and he would take off. And then we kind of learned a little bit more about the offense being so small playbook-wise that he didn't really have an overabundance of options. This is significantly different. We might have the Spencer Sanders capability and multiple quarterbacks, yet also now have this new NFL style of system where you're responsible for the audibles and the shifts and the changes in protection and putting guys in motion. That is an embodiment of the emergence, I guess you could say, of what Doug Meacham's offense could look like. Another fun fact here is everybody wants the diamond formation back. So why would you not at least occasionally toy with the idea of having multiple quarterbacks in the backfield? And it doesn't have to be just Hauss Hejny or Garret Rangel. We all know last year Zane Flores did participate at this time during spring as a legitimate running back. Like, he was getting real carries. It wasn't just a trinket gadget style of operation. It was legitimately him playing the running back position. So we know he's 6'3", 215 pounds. You got Trent Allen in the backfield. Of course, you've got Rodney Fields. You've got now Caleb Hicks. Unfortunately, Jaden Allen Hendricks has an injury, but we've been able to bring in a new transfer, which we're going to talk about with Brian Smith, national recruiting analyst, a little bit more on Friday. But going back to this diamond formation thing, that was something that Oklahoma State offensively was able to do to kind of counterbalance the numbers defensively. So sometimes if you have some inefficiencies at the offensive line, which I'm not saying that we do this year, but we did last year, you have to have the ability to kind of change the game. That's what Spencer Sanders gave us. We now know that Garret Rangel is significantly more of an athlete than he was when he arrived. Hauss Hejny came in as a phenomenal athlete. Zane Flores has played the running back position in Stillwater, and he's Mr. Nebraska that did throw for almost 10,000 yards, so he knows he can still do that. And then Milwaukee Smith looked really good in his reserve role last season, coming in and giving us an opportunity to win some of the last few games. So regardless of who wins the quarterback position, or if we could potentially have some fun with this thing, the whole idea to the offense being potentially faster and having more ability to get up and down the field in a matter of 40, 50 seconds, that is something we haven't had in a while. So why not bring back the diamond formation? Why not add a little layer to that diamond formation when you know you have multiple quarterbacks that can both sling the rock and push the ball downfield and take off and make it difficult on the defense to isolate anything that we're trying to do in the backfield? To cover up any deficiencies, you have to have the ability to numerically have an advantage. This is something Mike Gundy's talked about for years. So if we're all about this numerical advantage situation, and we know that virtually all of the quarterbacks on the roster can run, and we're going to open up the offense a little bit more, why would you not add an additional layer? I mean, even last year, like TCU could have had something pretty fun if they would have had Josh Hoover and Hauss Hejny out there at the same time. Was Hauss Hejny a massive threat to throw the ball last year at TCU? No, not really, and the defenses knew that, but he was so daggone fast, they still had difficulty with it. This is going to be significantly different. It's still Hauss Hejny that runs a 10-6. It's still Garret Rangel that can take off and run for 100 yards against BYU. None of these things have changed. If anything, they've become more advanced. The difference is Hauss Hejny is going to throw the ball significantly more in this offense, and Garret Rangel does have the ability to do both. Zane Flores has the ability to do both. Milwaukee Smith has already proven to be a commodity that we can rely on. It's an exciting time, in my opinion. So instead of people being stressed, including Mike Gundy, about why a quarterback hasn't completely separated and taken control of the job, let that sort itself out. We got time for that. But we also got time to experiment a little bit, have some fun. This is, I will admit, another reason why spring game against another competitive team would be an ideal scenario, because then you can see some of this in action. And if it doesn't work, then you can check it off the box. But if something you see on film does work, now you have something to carry over with. I think instead of being stressed about the quarterback position, it could be an opportunity for us to be excited about it. Speaking of being excited, Boys from Oklahoma is right around the corner. And when you're trying to get any kind of ticket, you got to get with Game Time, because there's nothing like the live energy of a concert or a comedy event or a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute Major League Baseball showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. Finding great seats at a great price does not have to be difficult. If it used to be a challenge is over with Game Time. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer. And with their all-in pricing, you can see the total cost up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout. Whenever you're trying to save up to 60% on last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, music, theater, whatever, Game Time has you covered. The peace of mind is because the seats are the panoramic 360-degree, no surprise fees, lowest price guaranteed, and you can book with total confidence. Their lowest price guarantee means the quality is never going to differentiate whether you are going to be excited or not. Game Time handles all of that for you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. From Game Time, the defensive side of the ball might take a little bit of work. Primarily, the word of the day must be complexity because of the complexity. Whenever you're going from something that is extremely basic, like the offensive side of the ball, and you're trying to make it more complex, thankfully the verbiage has some carryover from Meacham's former time at Oklahoma State. That is why the offense is going to have a little bit more of a capability. Now, typically, as spring and fall kind of wane on, the defense will have an understanding of what the offense is trying to do. They'll get a good read on the playbook. So by the end of everything, the defense should have more of the upper hand. But this defense is going to take time, right? But I still think when you look at last year, being 138th in the country in overall defense, it's likely still going to be better. We're doing a ton of rotations, which means that we think we might have the pieces, but we don't know exactly who those pieces are going to be, who are going to be the main guys. And, of course, you've got some of the terminology that Mordecai McDaniel had with Todd Grantham at Florida that's going to help with some implementation, right? But at the same time, this is entirely new. We do have a significant number of new dudes. We're not running the same system defensively. We're likely going to be adjusting to a new 3-man front mixed in with a stand-up 4-man front. That's just kind of like the 4-2-5, right? The 3-3-5 is just a 4-2-5 with a little bit of a differentiation on a safety. But this is going to be more meat and taters led. So the guys up front are going to be responsible to do more than what they were the last couple of years. The last couple of years, it's been the KISS method, right? Simplicity was all you have to do is eat up an area to open up the back end guys, to let the safeties and the linebackers kind of tee off, which is partially why Nick Martin was number one in the country in tackles a couple of years ago, 140 tackles. Yes, he is every bit that good, but part of it was because the defensive line's responsibilities were very elementary, much like the Casey Dunn offenses. So we expect that there's going to be a little bit of trial and error. Mike Gundy recently mentioned in a press conference that sometimes they play great, but sometimes because of the complexity, they do let some guys kind of run free in the back end occasionally. Not to mention, you are replacing Corey Black. And if we gain anything from his pro day numbers, is that he may have been a little bit underrated, especially even by myself. But nonetheless, you have Cam Smith, who's now going to be considered to be a veteran, but you also have some of the young guys. Jacoby Oliphant, I think, got to play a little bit last year, and I expect big things out of him. RJ Lester could be a factor here. Jalen Davies, he's got years of experience at UCLA. He should be able to transfer that into some of the younger guys in the defensive backfield. And then, of course, you're going to have J.K. Johnson, the former Ohio State, the former LSU dude, who could potentially make some things happen. You have the Davis brothers. I think that you have a lot of capabilities in the back end, but we don't know precisely what it's going to look like. And due to the different layers, right, each individual play might have 4 or 5 different stunts and shifts and calls off of it that these guys have to learn. So you're going to have to learn spacing. You're going to have to learn timing. You're going to have to get comfortable with everybody. Unfortunately, I don't know that that's going to happen very early on in the season because it's not just about verbiage. It's about making sure that you're in the right spots. And Todd Grantham is a stickler. Here's why I do have faith that this will finally, at some point in time, come together, is because of the continuity. We loved at Oklahoma State that you could get coaches to stay here for 15, 20 years. But at the same time, there's going to be continuity with the staff. That's why Todd Grantham brought in his guys. And above all else, we have Jules Montanar. So even on the front 7 and the back 7, they may not be in connection in the beginning. I think as the season progresses, as long as we see an uptick, we're going to be fine. And another big thing that we just simply need to see is while you're trying to learn things, you can be a little bend but don't break. But the point of that is to shut people out of the red zone. So early on in the season, when we're still trying to figure everything out, we're still trying to find out who's going to be the guy who calls all of the X's and the O's on the field, who's going to be the green dot guys. Before we figure all that out, we have to shut down the red zone. So I think early on in the season, that is the biggest determining factor on whether the defense is going to be able to do more than they have been the last couple of years. We know the responsibilities have changed. We know the complexity has changed pretty significantly, and it's going to take some time to figure out which pieces fit where. I think Justin Kirkland could have a massive season. The idea of putting Jaleel Johnson on the outside as a linebacker, it's very interesting. Having a 6'4", 265-pound linebacker, it's pretty amazing. Malik Charles, NFL pedigree, only been playing the game for a couple of years. He could be a massive addition. Brandon Rawls, fairly similar story. He played other sports primarily growing up, and he hasn't been really deep into football for an exorbitant amount of time. But more importantly, it's just the fact that there's going to be a new understanding that has to be implemented. So I think another indication that we could be onto something here is when the end of fall kind of kicks in, right? We just mentioned, oftentimes the defense gets a leg up by the end of fall because they understand what the offense is trying to do. And sometimes the offense will run the same play, multiple times, and they'll find the diagnosing coverages and finding ways to prevent the quarterbacks from doing it. It's all going to be a cat and mouse game of chess. But this is the beauty of having an NFL style of system being implemented on both sides of the ball. Is going to give ample opportunity for guys to get snaps. And I think early in the season, the starting 11 is going to look a little bit different, especially on the defensive side. Because, again, you're going to have guys like Brian McCoy that could fulfill that Nick Martin role, but it's going to take some time. Who's going to be the guy next to him? Is it going to be the spark plug? Ike Essenwoon, is this finally going to be a big year for him? Are we going to have the emergence of some of the younger guys like Gunnar Wilson and Yamil Talib, Jonathan Agumadou? Is Tamarick Johnson going to factor at the defensive line spot or a linebacker spot? We have a lot of versatility, and then Chindavian Bradley, I think, could be a potential X factor over there. It's going to take time to figure all that out. I mean, this previous season, we were all sold on the idea that somebody like a Kendall Daniels was going to transcend the safety position for Oklahoma State by becoming a linebacker, and it didn't work out. So some of the things that we see early may not be an indication on what this defense is going to look like by the end of the season. And it's not just the verbiage. It's not just the play installations. It's not just having multiple looks off of one play call. It's the fact that just personnel alone might kind of make a determination as the season progresses. Injuries are also going to obviously play a factor. Now we're about to have this window pop back open for spring portal. As Mike Gundy previously mentioned, some guys are going to leave. It's just a numbers game. And some of these guys will include some of the transfer portal guys. He mentioned the number being potentially 25. Like, we bought in 32 transfer guys. We could end up with 25 when it's all said and done, because some of these dudes that have come to Oklahoma State, they're going to realize, okay, I actually do not fit this scheme. I do not fit this system. I can't play this position the way that they want me to. I need to go find somewhere that is more suited to what I am trying to accomplish. Because, again, some of this has been kind of fluid throughout the spring as well. As much as Todd Grantham and Jules Montanar and Cap Deedy and Ryan McNamara and Ryan Osborne, as much as they want to keep everything installation-wise pretty simplistic, the advanced level of the defense is going to cause some headaches. And it is also going to lead some dudes to explore other avenues, which will also kind of change the way that things are done. It's also going to change the number of snaps that some of the younger guys are getting. But I think that we should all feel pretty confident that even in the growing pains, it's likely going to get better than last year, because we were pretty bad last season. And I think that the talent wasn't necessarily the issue. It was a large portion of changing things and the coaching schemes and then trying to adjust things midseason. And all of that can be problematic. I don't think that this staff is going to deal with those issues because there is continuity amongst themselves. And there's going to be some consistency that they're looking for. And as time progresses, we're going to find out which guys fit in the new system and can follow the consistent model that Todd Grantham and staff are looking for. but it's going to be a little bit of work in progress. So if anybody anticipated us instantly locking down the top spot of the Big 12 defensively, it might take a little bit more time than that. What doesn't need any more time is the Bedlam matchup. We could have this in all sports, and I'd be a happy camper. Likely you would be as well. Now we get that with Bedlam softball. I'm so happy that we're able to keep a lot of these Bedlam games kind of together. Bedlam baseball, Bedlam basketball, Bedlam softball. Is it the same as when they were in the conference? No. Do we get a 3-game series? No. But you still got to keep some of this together. The Bedlam Trophy needs to keep coming home where it belongs, to Stillwater America. I think hopefully someday we're able to bring back football. If we can't get the full game set, maybe the spring game is the ideal scenario. The NCAA's got their head up there. Yeah, we'll figure that out as time comes. But now we get the number 2 Oklahoma Lady Sooners taking on the number 16 Oklahoma State Cowgirls. This is a big moment because coming into the season, Kenny Gajewski had said that this might be the most talented team that we've ever had, and we have not lived up to that. But in his most recent press conference, he talks about how the girls are just playing too tight. He's not really ready to give up on the idea that this could be the most talented team that he's coached thus far in Stillwater, even though we're not doing what we did the last couple of years. We're not dominating teams. Last year, we did beat OU in a Bedlam series, 2 out of 3 for the first time in over a decade. And we're not dominating teams like that this year. And you've had some injuries, like Riley Crandall coming over from Baylor. She was supposed to be a massive addition. She still could be, but she's barely coming back from an injury. That was a derailment that we didn't see coming. I don't think we anticipated Katie Coots kind of coming up to the degree that she has. She was likely supposed to be behind Ruby Malin, behind Riley Crandall, and maybe even potentially behind Kyra Aycock. We did get to see Kyra a little bit against Arizona. She still got some stuff to work on. And now we've got to play this game, which might be the biggest game of the season, as we still also prepare for Iowa State in a full 3-game series set. So it's going to be interesting because if we stop playing so tight, and again, this is what Kenny Gajewski mentioned, is we're not striking out enough, right? Very often you hear coaches talk against the strikeout numbers, but to hear a coach talk about we're not striking out enough, it's because he was saying we're playing too tight. We're not having fun. We're not swinging the sticks. We're not moving runners over. We're not having a good time. We're trying to think too much. And when you think too much and you play too tight, you have these issues. We're still a good ball club. Are we 34-3 like OU? No, but we're like, 26-11? So it's still a very good ball club. We're right outside the top 15. If we can get the bats going against OU, this could catapult us into winning a Big 12 title. And now that we dropped 2-3 to Arizona, we've got some work to do. We need a game like this just to kind of give us an understanding that we still can be competitive with the best teams in the country, even though we're having, by our standards, a down year. And thankfully, Kenny Gajewski's raised those standards so much because a decade ago, beating OU one time was not really a conversation. Winning the Big 12 one time was not really in the conversation. So he's done so much, and this game is good for the sport. This is one of those opportunities to help grow the sport. Obviously, there's a sellout down in Oklahoma City for tonight, as it should be. The Sooners are projected to win, but this is an opportunity. And tell me it wouldn't change the confidence level of not only that locker room, but us as a fan base. Because if you can take down a team that is 34-3, number 2 in the country, at a neutral site, after you've been struggling for most of the season, it should show you what you can be. And likewise for OU. I mean, this is a game that they need to have, because in order to continue to be at the upper echelon of the juggernaut of the sport, you have to be able to win these battles. And OU has carried this game for a long time. But Coach Kenny Gajewski is right. We have changed that. It's not like OU's carrying the water anymore. There's going to be almost as much orange in that stadium as there is going to be crimson. There's going to be more eyeballs likely on this game than any of the regular season games for either team for the rest of the season, until maybe you get to the postseason. So it's going to be good for eyeballs. It's going to be good for the state of Oklahoma. It's good for, recruits that are going to be on hand for both schools. And likely, since we are at the level we are, these are going to be recruits that we're both going after. The days of OU getting anybody and everybody they wanted, yeah, they still exist, but they have competition in state. So from a recruiting perspective, this is huge for both schools. There's going to be recruits for both schools on hand at this game. The atmosphere is likely going to be electric. Hopefully the game lives up to the expectations we had in the preseason, because in the preseason, the expectation was, well, if Kenny Geiske thinks this might be the most talented team he's ever coached here, we're easily winning the Big 12, with OU and Texas being gone. Arizona has something to say about that, okay? But now we need this game to kind of let us know where we stand. The beginning of the season was rough, but that's because we were playing a bunch of top 5, top 10 teams. This is another opportunity for Kenny Geiske to find what this team is made of. Is the talent level as high as he thinks? Well, I have faith that Kenny Geiske knows what he's talking about when he says things like that. So I think we should all have faith that this is going to be good for the sport. It's going to be good for the state. It's going to be good for recruiting, but it could be absolutely massive for us. OU's good. They know they're good. They've only lost 3 games. They're number 2 in the country. Their expectation is to go play for another national title. Our expectation was to do that preseason. Now we kind of need to check ourselves and see where we are. This would prove that we've still got the talent to compete with anybody. We just need to find a way to go out and get it done, especially with these recruits on hand. All righty, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you liked it. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast people out there, you are everything that makes this thing go. I appreciate you and everything you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. I appreciate you. All righty, y'all. Later, taters.